I had not thought about democracy in Africa. The way I grew up, everything was westernized or Europeanized, or, we use those qualifiers with things, but I had not considered how it affected the people on the continent of Africa or specific countries. I just never considered it.
I think before I went to Africa, I had, I would say, a rather naive idea of what democracy meant to me, and it was a very American idea.
Having grown up in Liberia, West Africa, and having gone through a long period of civil war, basically all of my childhood, democracy was just something that we had learned in textbooks.
I think I just had this idea that multi-party elections were good, they represented the people.
And for me, democracy was just having elections and people going to vote.
I had no idea of the complicated, intricate details, naively so, I have to say. But and as I learned more about it, African democracy became a very unique thing, and it didn't really look like democracy that I knew, or even the democracy that people knew in Europe. It's this exported idea that they have to make it their own, so it's going to look different. I got off the plane, took a deep breath, and thought, I'm in Africa.
For a brief second, I felt like, hold on, am I really in Mozambique or am I back in Liberia? And I said, hold on, yeah, I feel like I'm home. But I saw a lot of differences. Mozambique's infrastructure is way more developed than Liberia, obviously, and the language was really different. But the hospitality, the people, the reception that we got, it was so similar.
And then we interviewed President Chissano.
How do you tie democracy into what you teach the children in Mozambique?
To sit in a room with a head of state and to be able to be open, to ask questions, I think it took a while for me to really, really believe that this was happening to us.
We teach by practice. You don't have to say, it's democracy. You do democracy. You don't speak about democracy, you do democracy.
I was impressed with his candidness. I was in awe of how he was able to help us to understand more about democracy. I was also impressed with his ability to take us back with a historical perspective.
This electoral process of this kind started in 1994. Because before we had a single party. I don't like to say that it was a single party system. I don't use that expression because it would sound as if in Mozambique we had conceived the system to be of one party only. But in Mozambique, what we had to do was to create the party because there was no party.
It was really an eye-opener to see this man who was representing Mozambican democracy and what it means for Mozambique. And it was so clear how he took these ideas and applied it to his own country. This wasn't just an exported idea. It became something that was clearly so dear to his heart and clearly so dear to his vision for Mozambique.
with Mozambique, for the past 30 years, they've had one political party in place. And for me, I thought to myself, is this really multi-party democracy, or is it just dual party or one party, basically? And with Frelimo and Renamo, it was dual party.
We fought for democracy. Democracy, it means 3, 4, 5 parties taking the ration. It's the reason why what happened in Mozambique, you know, in the past was just one party state. After independence, 1975, I was a member of Frelimo. We ran away to Bush, 1977, starting to do struggle to forcing one party state to accept the multi-party. It means that for me, it's honor to see many parties. But even now, in Mozambique, we still have just 2 parties. This is clear, 2 parties. Rural Party Frelimo and the Renamo party that I am leader.
This is another party.
Okay. As we got to Mozambique, we actually learned a lot more about the third and upcoming party, which is MDM, the Democratic Movement of Mozambique. And that was interesting to us because a lot of the young people found a lot of hope in that party, and the whole movement was about change, which is something that we saw here in America as part of our last election.
E todas as pessoas, ou quase todas as pessoas que vêm para o MDM são as pessoas pobres. E é a maioria da população. Neste momento, Moçambique tem talvez 80% da população é pobre.
And I was so glad that MDM did come into the picture this election to basically change things, and it did change things. It might not have changed with the presidency, but there was a shift in the political spectrum in the way Mozambicans regarded their democratic process.
Tens aqui os candidatos, marca com xixi o seu candidato, dobre ao comprido, depois ao curto. Este azul introduz na urna azul e tens este para o partido. Escolhe o seu partido sinalizando com um xixi, dobre ao comprido e dobre ao curto, introduz na urna branca.
You know, for me, going on October 28, 2009 to observe Mozambique's 5th presidential election, and for me, I just voted in my first presidential election. You know, the opportunity to see people in Mozambique standing hours in line to go and cast their vote, that was something really special.
It is very important to vote because we really say, we decide who we want, who will make the country develop very well in a good standards that we want. Not we, I mean the Mozambican people.
Yeah, I was voting, as you can see in my finger. That's a sign when you vote here in Mozambique. After that, put the finger to make sure that you have been voting.
11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16.
Being in a room and watching them count those votes to bring in a new system, or even if it's an old system, to bring in a new administration, really made me think about where my country was and how far we can go. Mozambique is making progress, but a bulk of the people are not benefiting from that progress. And I think that happens in most nations, in most African countries as a whole.
There's so many issues. It's not just healthcare, it's also education and agriculture and industry. And then they have to worry about the economy too.
And I think it's that part that is really heartbreaking, to know that we can all look at Mozambique as a model. We can all look at Mozambique as this is one of the few African countries that's taking the lead in maintaining a stable democracy. But what does this mean for their own people? What does it mean for those people who find themselves in the lower spectrum of society? What does it mean for those people who cannot afford to feed their families or cannot afford to send their kids to those private schools or even public schools? What does it mean for them?
What I learned is that Mozambicans are proud people from the ones that I met, and they don't want handouts. They don't want the assistance, and they don't want us coming and feeling sorry for them. They want to be the change.
I learned more that democracy is a larger concept, and it's something to be strived for as opposed to a very static thing that happens during an election process.
And having been to Africa and seeing how it translates into daily life for them and how excited the people got about the politics and the rallies and all the posters and everything, and how passionately President Chissano talked about democracy and how it kind of changed the way that I viewed it. It went from meaning something that is just how a country was run to meaning something, giving a voice to the people.